My name is Amira, and on August 4th, 2016, my life unraveled during a night meant for celebration. I was 24 years old, a Saudi princess surrounded by privilege, yet empty and restless inside. What followed shattered every belief I held about faith, destiny, and truth. This is my testimony of how Jesus reached me when I least expected it.
I was born into a world most people only see in films. Marble corridors that echoed with the footsteps of servants, crystal chandeliers heavier than some cars, imported Italian furniture in rooms no one ever really used. I grew up in one of the private compounds of the House of Saud, where the walls were high enough to keep out poverty, questions, and anything that didn't fit the script of our controlled reality. From my earliest memories, I was Princess Amira. Before I could spell my name, adults bowed to me, kissed my head, and told me I was blessed, chosen, favored by Allah. I had my own wing of the palace by the time I was 11, a dressing room bigger than most apartments, racks of dresses from Paris and Milan, drawers of jewelry guarded by cameras and quiet men with guns. But none of that could touch the part of me that felt hollow. The palace was noisy with laughter, parties, and political conversations, yet I always felt like I was watching my life from behind thick glass. I remember lying on my enormous bed at night, staring at the carved wooden ceiling, asking a question I didn't dare say out loud. If I have everything, why do I feel like I have nothing? In public, I played my role perfectly. I smiled on cue. I wore the right abayas, the right brands beneath them, the right perfumes imported from Paris, the right designer heels under my modest hems. I learned how to carry myself with a dignity that made even older men lower their eyes. But in private, I was suffocating. I watched the women around me, my mother, my aunts, my older cousins who did everything right. They prayed, they fasted, they obeyed their husbands and fathers. They hosted elaborate gatherings and recited Quranic verses with perfect pronunciation. Yet when they thought no one was looking, I saw the sadness in their eyes, the way their smiles faded when they turned away, the way their shoulders dropped when they thought they were alone. I learned early that luxury can decorate a prison, but it cannot unlock it. The palace was a golden cage, and every new privilege felt like another bar. I had never known hunger for food or thirst for water, but I knew a deeper hunger, an ache in my soul I didn't know how to name. No one around me could see it. To them, I was the envy of millions. Young, wealthy, beautiful, royal. Inside, I was already breaking. In my family, Islam was not a suggestion. It was the air we breathed, the unquestionable structure of life. From the time I could walk, I was taught to copy the movements of prayer. Tiny hands pressed to a tiny chest, tiny forehead to a tiny prayer mat, tiny lips whispering sounds I didn't understand, but was told were holy. As I grew older, my religious education intensified. I learned about modesty, obedience, the fear of Allah, judgment, paradise, and hell. Our home had a private prayer room more ornate than most mosques, Persian carpets, gold inlaid calligraphy, soft lights casting shadows of Arabic verses across the walls. From the outside, I was the model of a devout Muslim princess. I prayed 5 times a day. I fasted in Ramadan. I attended religious lectures. I listened to imams speak of heaven and hell with voices thick with certainty. But inside, every prayer felt like another conversation with an empty ceiling. I tried to do it right. I tried to feel something. I would place my forehead on silk-soft carpets and whisper, "Ya Allah, are you really there? Or am I just talking to my own fear?" No answer came. The older I got, the more religion felt like a beautiful cage, a system that gave structure but not life. I heard a lot about obedience, rules, honor, shame. I heard less about love. I heard about Allah's greatness, but not about intimacy. I heard about submission, but not about being known. And as a woman, I learned my place quickly. Even as a princess, there were invisible lines I could not cross. I was valuable, but not free. Protected, but not truly seen. On the outside, I repeated the words everyone wanted to hear. Islam is perfect. Islam is peace. Islam is enough. On the inside, a quieter sentence kept forming. One I was terrified to admit even to myself. Then, why do I feel so far from God? I didn't know it then. But that internal question was the first crack in the shell I had been raised in. And when something is cracked, it only takes the right pressure for it to shatter. By the time I was 19, I had mastered the art of dual existence. In Riyadh, I was the respectful daughter, the modest princess, the girl who walked behind her father with lowered eyes and careful grace. I knew every expectation and met them like a script I could say in my sleep. But the moment our private jet lifted off Saudi soil and the abaya slipped from my shoulders behind tinted glass, another version of me emerged. In London, Paris, Dubai, and New York, I became the girl the gossip blogs sometimes hinted at but never dared fully expose. The mysterious Middle Eastern heiress at exclusive parties, whose eyes looked older than her age and whose laugh was always just a little too loud. I drank what I wasn't allowed to drink. I wore what I wasn't allowed to wear. I flirted with men I would never be allowed to marry. I danced in clubs filled with smoke and colored lights, until dawn smeared itself across the sky outside tinted windows. But the emptiness never left. It only changed outfits. I tried to fill the void with experiences. VIP tables, private concerts, yachts, penthouses. I spent money like it had no meaning because, to me, it really didn't. Things came too easily. When you can buy almost anything, you quickly realize how little anything is actually worth. There were nights I would walk back into a hotel suite at 4 a.m, heels in my hand, mascara smudged. I would stare into my own eyes and whisper, "Who are you, Amira? And what are you even looking for?" I didn't know the answer. I just knew I couldn't stop. Back home, I lied. I told my parents I shopped, met respectable people, visited museums and historical sites. In a way, it was true. I just left out the alcohol, the men, the music that made the floor shake, and the things I did to silence the screaming silence inside of me. I became two people, the good Muslim princess in Saudi, the restless rebel abroad. The split tore at me, but I told myself this was just how life worked. You played your part. You smiled for the cameras and cried in the bathroom when no one was looking. And if the hollowness got too loud, there was always another party, another drink, another distraction waiting somewhere in another city. It felt like freedom at first. Then it started to feel like running. I met the Bible in a penthouse in London, not as a holy book, but as a joke. I was 22, lounging on a white leather sofa with a group of wealthy friends, children of ministers, princes, businessmen, the kind of people who slip through airports without going through security lines and whose names never appear on official lists. One of my friends, Layla, walked in with a smirk on her face and a small black book in her manicured hands. "You won't believe what I found in the lobby bookshelf," she laughed. "Christian stuff. A Bible. Look at this." She dropped it on the table like it was a toy. The gold letters on the cover spelled Holy Bible. I felt a prick of discomfort in my chest. From childhood, I had been taught that this book was corrupted, changed, dangerous. "Let's see what the kuffar believe," another friend joked. "Maybe we can make some art with it." There was a pair of sharp, gold-handled scissors on the table, decorative, meant for opening letters and packages. Curiosity warred with arrogance in my heart. I had seen Bibles in passing, in hotels, in the hands of Western tourists, but I had never opened one, never read a line. I flipped it open and landed in the Gospels. My eyes scanned phrases about love, grace, forgiveness, about a man named Jesus who called God Father, a God who came close, a God who touched the sick, defended the broken. It felt warm, uncomfortably warm, like something was reaching for me through the page. I snapped the book shut, annoyed with myself. "It's nonsense," I said lightly, louder than I needed to. "Let's make something creative out of this." I opened it again, and this time, instead of reading, I began to cut. I cut out words, phrases, whole verses, laughing as I arranged them into random shapes on the table. My friends cheered. Someone started filming on their phone. "Look at Princess Amira, cutting up the Christians' holy book," one of them said. "Post it later. They'll lose their minds." I held one page up, John 3:16, though I didn't know it then, and sliced it in half. "For God so loved the world." I read the words, then snorted. "Well, God can love this confetti," I said, chopping it into little pieces. Inside, something flinched. but I pushed the feeling down. We treated the Bible like a craft project. We glued words onto blank sheets, making sarcastic fake posters. We cut out Jesus from different pages and stuck his name in ridiculous sentences. I posed with the scissors and the torn book like it was a trophy of my intelligence, my rebellion, my superiority. I told myself it was harmless. Just fun. Just paper. Just ink. But I felt something watching me that night. Something grieved. And for the first time, when I went to sleep, darkness didn't just surround me. It followed me in. The nightmares started almost immediately after that night. At first, they were vague. I dreamt of pages swirling around me like dead leaves in a storm, edges sharp as blades, words melting into black ink that washed over my hands like blood. I woke up shaken, but I blamed it on the alcohol and the late hours. Then they grew worse. In one dream, I stood alone in a vast desert at night. The sand beneath my feet was cold, but the air burned. Around me, torn Bible pages spun in a fierce wind, each piece on fire. The flames didn't consume them, they just burned, endlessly. The words on the pages were alive. They screamed. Not with human voices, but with accusation, with grief. Why? They seemed to ask. Why would you destroy what you have not read? In another dream, I sat with the Bible and scissors again. But when I cut into the page, it was flesh, not paper. Blood ran down my hands, heavy and hot. I screamed, but no sound came out. Every time, I woke up breathless, my heart pounding, my silk sheet stuck to my skin with sweat. I told no one at first. Nightmares were easy to hide beneath makeup and expensive clothes. But as days turned into weeks, they didn't stop. They intensified. The same presence I had felt watching me in the penthouse felt closer now, like eyes on the back of my neck. When I opened my prayer mat in Riyadh and went through the motions of Islamic prayer, I couldn't stop seeing that little black book on the table, the pages in my hand, the scissors glinting in the light. I started having panic attacks, in cars, in elevators, even at family dinners. I would suddenly feel like I couldn't breathe, like the room was collapsing, like something was wrong with me that nothing could fix. My mother blamed my Western trips. Too much freedom, she said gently. Too much exposure to corruption. My father increased my religious obligations. More Quran tutors, more time with respected sheikhs, more lectures on the greatness of Allah and the danger of doubt. They thought religion would fix it. But religion was already the cage I couldn't breathe in. The more they pushed, the more I rebelled. I partied harder on my trips. I drank more. I slept less. I surrounded myself with noise, people, flashing lights, anything to drown out the silence that screamed. Yet every night, the dreams waited. One detail kept repeating. In many of them, there was a figure standing at a distance, not close enough to see clearly, but close enough to feel. A man in white, watching, not with anger but with a sadness so deep it pierced me. I didn't know his name then, but he knew mine. August 4th, 2016, began like so many other glamorous nights in my life. It was my cousin's engagement celebration in Jeddah. The hotel ballroom glittered with gold and light. Flowers spilled from crystal vases. The scent of oud and expensive perfume rose in the air like a luxurious fog. I wore a custom-made gown beneath my abaya, midnight blue silk, embroidered with tiny crystals that caught the light like stars. My hairdresser had spent hours on my waves. My makeup was flawless, my jewelry understated but shockingly valuable. On the outside, I was perfect. On the inside, I felt like I was made of glass, one impact away from shattering. The nightmares had been relentless that week. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time. My mind felt raw, my nerves exposed. But in my family, we didn't cancel appearances because of feelings. We showed up. We smiled. We kept the image intact. The evening passed in a blur of photos, greetings, music, and carefully controlled joy. My cousin glowed as she showed off her ring. Older relatives exchanged stories and compliments. The men gathered to talk business and politics. I laughed when I was supposed to. I posed when the cameras turned toward me. But every time I looked toward the floor, I imagined pages torn, burned, scattered under my heels. By midnight, I was exhausted. The engagement formalities were over. The music grew louder, looser. I told my mother I was leaving. You should stay longer, she said, though her eyes were sympathetic. I have a headache, I lied. I'll be home in 20 minutes. We had security, of course. But that night, I insisted on something different. I just want to drive with my friend Hannah, I said. No big convoy, just one car. It felt rebellious and thrillingly normal to sit in the back seat of a black SUV with only one guard in the front and my closest friend beside me. The city lights of Jeddah streaked past the windows as we drove through the warm night. Hannah scrolled on her phone, laughing at a video. You remember that Bible you cut up? She asked suddenly. Layla sent me the clip again. She still thinks it's hilarious. End quote. She turned the screen toward me. There I was, scissors in hand, Bible on my lap, laughing as words about love and salvation fell in pieces at my feet. My chest tightened. The air in the car felt thicker. Turn it off, I snapped. Wow, relax, she said, surprised. Just a joke. Don't play it again, I said quietly, staring at the dark road ahead. Our driver changed lanes to overtake a slower car. A truck in the opposite lane swerved unexpectedly, its headlights blinding. The world slowed. Sound stretched. I remember Hannah's scream, the guard's curse, the screech of tires, the sudden violent jolt as metal slammed into metal. Then everything went black. They say car accidents happen in an instant, but mine felt like eternity crammed into a heartbeat. Later, they would tell me the truck driver fell asleep for a second, just 1 second. He drifted into our lane at highway speed. Our driver tried to swerve, but there was nowhere to go. In that suspended sliver of time, my life unfolded in flashes. Marble floors, prayer rooms, nightclubs, scissors cutting through thin Bible paper, my father's stern face, my mother's worried eyes, pages swirling in my nightmares, the man in white at a distance. The impact was a sound and a sensation all at once. Metal crumpled like paper. Glass exploded. My body jerked forward despite the seatbelt, my head snapping, my side slamming into the door. Something heavy and hot pierced my leg. The seatbelt bit into my chest. Then silence. No sirens, no voices, no groaning metal, just nothing. I tried to breathe, but my lungs didn't respond. Panic rose, and then suddenly, the panic was gone. So was the pain. I realized I was no longer inside my body. I hovered above the wreck, watching the scene below with a strange, detached clarity. The SUV was a twisted, smoking shape of black and silver. The windshield shattered, the front end crushed. The headlights hung at odd angles, flickering weakly. I saw Hannah slumped forward, unconscious but breathing. I saw the guard pinned, his leg at an impossible angle, blood dark against the upholstery. I saw myself, head tilted to one side, hair tangled, face streaked with blood, chest frighteningly still. It should have terrified me, but it didn't. I felt quiet, completely quiet for the first time in years. The anxiety, the emptiness, the noise of my mind, all of it was gone. I became aware of movement, a gentle pull, like a current in deep water. It drew me away from the wreckage, away from the flashing lights of approaching cars, away from the sounds that were only now beginning to break through shouts, screams, phone calls, sirens. The world of asphalt and twisted metal faded. For the first time in my life, I was not in a palace, not in a mosque, not in a club, not in a car. I was somewhere else, somewhere between, and someone was waiting. The pull grew stronger, and suddenly I was moving fast. Not through space, the way a plane moves through the sky, but through something deeper. I found myself traveling down what people often describe as a tunnel of light, but no words truly capture it. It was like moving inside a living beam of warmth and brilliance. The light wasn't harsh like the desert sun, or artificial like hospital lamps. It was gentle and powerful at the same time, as if it could look straight through me and not turn away. For the first time, I felt peace that wasn't fragile, not the temporary calm of money well spent, compliments received, or reputations protected. This peace was heavy and steady, like an anchor dropped into the deepest ocean. Time didn't behave normally there. I felt like I was traveling for hours, and also like it all happened in a single breath. There was no fear, no panic, no dread. The gnawing emptiness that had followed me from the palace to the clubs to the prayer rugs was gone, as if it had never existed. I became aware of sound not from outside, but woven into the light itself. It wasn't music with instruments or lyrics, but harmony. It felt like the entire place was singing. Every note told me the same thing in a way words never had. You are known. You are seen. You are not alone. As I moved, I understood something without anyone saying it. I had left my life. My body lay broken in that SUV. My parents were being called. My name was being whispered in panic over phones and radios. And yet, I was not afraid to leave. All my life, I had feared death not consciously, but like a pressure at the edge of my thoughts. We spoke of heaven and hell, scales weighed with deeds, the terror of not knowing whether you'd done enough. But here, in this place of impossible peace, I wasn't worried about scales or punishment. I wasn't thinking about paradise or hellfire. I was just overwhelmed by a sense of being drawn towards something, someone utterly good. The tunnel widened. The light deepened. Colors appeared. Colors I have never seen on earth. Colors that were more like emotions than shades. Every particle around me pulsed with life, with purpose, with joy. Then, just ahead in the light, I saw him, the figure from my dreams. No longer distant, no longer blurred. He walked toward me with open arms, and every part of me knew, without a doubt, who he was. Jesus. If you grew up Muslim as I did, you learn about Isa Jesus as a prophet, a righteous man, a miracle worker, born of a virgin, but not the Son of God, not crucified, not risen, not Lord. So when I saw him standing there in the light, every teaching I had absorbed since childhood should have screamed in protest. Because the moment his eyes met mine, every argument, every lecture, every dogma fell silent. He was Middle Eastern, like me. His skin carried the tone of our sun. His hair fell around, his face in soft waves. His features were simple, not like the overly perfect paintings I had glimpsed in Western art. And yet he was more beautiful than any face I had seen in my life, not because of symmetry, but because of what radiated from him. Love, not romantic love, not family love, not even the fierce protective love of a father. This love was deeper, wider, older than the universe. It was a love that had seen every sin I had ever committed, every thought I had ever hidden, every page I had ever cut and still didn't retreat. Amira, he said. The way he said my name shattered me. I had heard thousands of people speak my name, formal, reverent, envious, mocking, affectionate. No one had ever said it like this. It felt like he was speaking to the deepest version of me, the girl under the makeup, under the titles, under the rebellion. My name is Amira, I had said many times, but until that moment, I had never truly known what it meant to be fully seen. I fell to my knees without thinking, without being told. Respect wasn't demanded. It was drawn out of me by his sheer presence. Lord. The words slipped from my lips before my mind could catch up. A flicker of memory stabbed through me. Scissors in my hand. His name on torn pages. My laughter echoing off penthouse walls. I saw myself again, cutting his story into pieces. Shame rose like a wave. I cut your book, I whispered. I mocked you. I called you a lie. I wanted nothing to do with you. He didn't flinch. He stepped closer. I know, he said softly. I was there. I saw it then, not just remembered it. The penthouse in London, my friends, the Bible, myself, laughing, slicing pages, and in the corner of the room, unseen by human eyes, Jesus, watching, grieved, not for himself, but for me. I felt every cut, he said kindly. Not because paper can hurt me, but because your heart was cutting itself off from the one who loves you. Tears burned my eyes, but the shame I felt wasn't like the crushing condemnation of my nightmares. It was a clean, clarifying ache, the pain of finally seeing truth. I don't deserve to be here, I choked out. I lived in sin. I disobeyed everything I was taught. I mocked you. I cut. He reached out his hand. I saw scars on his wrists, old and yet fresh, like wounds that had healed but refused to forget their purpose. My love, he said, and those two words unraveled years of emptiness. I did not wait for you to deserve me. I died because you never could. Standing before Jesus, everything I had been taught about religion rose in my mind like a tide. The 5 pillars, the scales of deeds, the hope that your good might outweigh your bad. the fear that it might not. I tried to be good, I said, my voice trembling. I prayed, I fasted, I gave, I studied, and when I couldn't stand it, I ran to parties, to men, to alcohol. I failed both worlds. I failed Islam and I failed you. He looked at me with a compassion so deep it hurt. Amira, he said gently, you never knew me. You knew rules, expectations, fear. You never knew my heart. I thought of all the times I'd knelt on prayer rugs feeling nothing. All the nights I'd stared at ceilings, begging a God who felt far away to just say something. All the shame I had carried, trying to fix myself with more effort, more rebellion, more distraction. In your world, Jesus continued, you were told you must climb to God. Pray enough, obey enough, be pure enough, hope your scales are balanced, but the weight of those scales was never meant for you to carry. His words pierced me not as an insult to Islam, but as an X-ray of my own exhausted soul. I am not a distant judge, he said. I am the God who came down when you could not come up. I saw it then not as a doctrine, but as a story written across his scars. The cross, the nails, the mockery, the death he willingly embraced, not for strangers, but for me. For the girl who cut his words into confetti and posted it as a joke, for the princess who had a palace full of servants but no rest for her heart. Religion told you to earn love, he said. Tears spilled down my face. I don't know how to accept that, I whispered. You just admit the truth, he answered. That you cannot save yourself, that you need me, that you believe I am who I say I am, the Son of God, crucified and risen, the only way to the Father. The words, Son of God, burned against everything I had been raised to believe. In my old life, they would have been blasphemy. Here, in his presence, they felt like reality itself. I thought calling you the Son of God was an insult to Allah. He smiled, not offended, but tender. You feared dishonoring God, he said. But the greatest honor you can give the Father is to receive the one he sent. I realized then, my entire life had been spent trying to be enough. Enough for my family, for society, for God. And in all that striving, I had never once experienced the rest I felt in this moment. You are not enough, he said, not to condemn but to free. But I am. Will I die now? I asked. It was a strange question, because for the first time, death didn't terrify me. Staying here, in this place of light, with him, sounded like the only thing I had ever truly wanted. You can stay, he said, and I believed him. He wasn't playing with my heart. He paused, and the light around us seemed to listen. Or, he continued, you can return. Your body is broken. Your family is terrified. Your nation is drowning in fear and religion without me. You can go back as mine to shine where it is darkest. But it will cost you. Following me will cost you your comfort, your reputation, perhaps even your life. He didn't sugarcoat it. He never does. Images flooded my mind. My father, devout and proud. My mother, anxious but loving. My siblings, laughing in our childhood garden. My cousins, my friends, my staff, my country, where leaving Islam could mean death even for a princess. What if they kill me? I asked. Then you come home sooner, he replied, with a calm that shook me. But until that day, you will not be alone. I will be with you in palaces, in secret rooms, in every whispered prayer. I knew what saying yes meant. I would no longer belong fully to my family, my nation, my old world. I would belong to him. Jesus, I said, the name tasting strange and beautiful on my tongue. I don't understand everything. I don't know how to explain this to anyone, but I know you are Lord. I know you are the Son of God. I know you died and rose again. And I know that without you, I am empty, no matter how much I own. I took a shaking breath. I give you my life, I whispered. All of it. The palace, the title, the secrets, the shame, the parts I hide from everyone. Forgive me. Change me. I am yours. The moment those words left my heart, the light around us intensified, but instead of blinding, it clarified. I felt something break open inside me, like chains I hadn't known I was carrying falling to the ground. The emptiness that had lived in my chest since I was a little girl vanished, replaced with a presence. Warm, steady, quietly powerful. I didn't just feel peace. I felt a person living within me. "This is my spirit," Jesus said. "You are no longer just princess of a kingdom that will pass. You are a daughter of the King of Kings. When you wake up, remember, I did not just save you from death. I saved you for a purpose. I wanted to stay, but I understood now. Love sometimes sends you back into the fire to rescue others. Go," he said softly. "Tell them what I did. Even those who hate your words, even those who threaten your life. My love for them is greater than their hatred." The light began to pull away. Not in rejection, but like a door slowly closing as I stepped through. The last thing I heard before the world rushed back was his voice over the fading music of that realm. "Never forget, Amira, the book you cut could not cut my love for you." I gasped. The first thing I felt was pain. A sharp, overwhelming, almost electric pain, shooting through my chest, leg, and head. The peace of that place of light shattered like glass. The heavy smell of gasoline, smoke, and blood rushed in to replace it. I heard shouting, Arabic and English intertwined. Sirens wailed in the distance. Metal groaned. Someone swore under their breath. "Amira." It was Hannah's voice, hoarse and broken. I tried to speak, but only a strangled sound came out. My throat felt like sandpaper. "Stay with us, princess," another voice said urgently. A paramedic, I realized. Gloved hands hovered above me. Bright lights flashed. Someone cut away fabric from my gown. "Blood pressure is low, get the stretcher ready. Her leg is crushed. Chest bruising. We need to move fast." I wanted to tell them I had already been somewhere faster than any ambulance could travel, but I could barely breathe. As they lifted me out of the destroyed car, the night sky spread above like a black ocean dotted with stars. For a brief moment, I thought of the light I had just left. It made the stars look dim. In the ambulance, everything blurred. Oxygen mask, IV lines, beeping machines, medical jargon. But beneath the chaos, I felt something steady that made no sense. I was not afraid. "If I die again," I thought hazily, "I know where I am going. I know who is waiting." But somehow, deep inside, I also knew I wouldn't die that night. Not for good. Jesus had sent me back for a reason. His spirit pulsed in me like a second heartbeat. At the hospital, they rushed me into surgery. The fluorescent lights on the ceiling passed by in fast, bright strips. Doctors shouted instructions. Nurses moved with practiced urgency. Multiple fractures. Internal bleeding. We might lose her, push more fluids. As the anesthesia crept in, pulling me under, a single verse I had never read consciously surfaced in my mind, like a gift whispered from someone who knew I needed it. "I will never leave you nor forsake you." I closed my eyes, and instead of darkness, I saw his face. Not distant now, not blurred. With me, in a Saudi hospital, in a Muslim girl's broken body. The King of Kings kept his promise. When I woke again, it was to the steady beep of monitors and the faint scent of antiseptic. And my father, he sat in a chair near my bed, his strong shoulders slumped in a posture I had never seen before. His hands were clasped so tightly, his knuckles were white. His lips moved silently, forming prayers I had grown up hearing. "Baba," I whispered. His head snapped up. For a moment, disbelief battled with hope in his eyes. Then he stood so quickly the chair nearly toppled. "Alhamdulillah," he breathed, tears spilling down his face. "Praise be to Allah." He moved to my side, cradling my face in his hands like I was a child again. I saw lines in his skin I had never noticed, shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. Doctors entered, nurses followed. They checked my vitals, asked me questions, shone lights into my eyes. The more they tested, the stranger their expressions became, not alarmed, but puzzled. "Her recovery is unexpected," one of them murmured in English, glancing at my father. "We need to run more scans." Over the next 48 hours, I learned what had happened while I was gone. My leg had been crushed, but not shattered the way they expected. My chest showed massive bruising, but no fatal organ damage. There had been internal bleeding, but it had stopped faster than their procedures could fully explain. "You were clinically gone in the ambulance for nearly 2 minutes," one of the surgeons told me quietly, after my father stepped out. "No heartbeat. No breathing. We did CPR. We were about to call your time of death. When your heart just started again." He shook his head. "And now, you're healing faster than we expect for this kind of trauma. Medically, we can't fully explain it. I could. It wasn't Allah who had pulled me through that tunnel of light. It wasn't my good deeds that gave my heart a second beat. It wasn't luck or coincidence. It was Jesus. But I was in a Saudi hospital, in a Saudi body, with Saudi family filling the waiting room with Islamic prayers. Inside, however, my worship had already changed directions. Every time my father said, 'Praise be to Allah for saving you,' my heart whispered, 'Thank you, Jesus, for giving me back my life.' The physical healing was only half the miracle. The other half was harder to describe. The anxiety that had stalked me for years was gone. The emptiness, gone. The shame, still serious but now wrapped in a strange, steady joy. I lay in that hospital bed with tubes in my arms and bruises on my skin and knew, with more certainty than I knew my own name, I am not the same girl who got into that SUV. Returning to the palace felt like stepping back into a world that no longer fit. The marble, the chandeliers, the servants bowing as I passed, it was all the same. I was not. My mother hovered over me, tucking blankets, bringing soups, adjusting pillows. My siblings brought gifts and stories and nervous jokes about my 9 lives. Relatives poured in with flowers and prayers. Imams sent messages praising Allah for His mercy in sparing a faithful daughter. If they had known what had really happened in that tunnel of light, they would not have called me faithful anymore. The first Friday after my return, I sat beside my family in our prayer room. The Imam's voice flowed through the television from the Grand Mosque, reciting verses about submission and the narrow path to paradise. I bowed when everyone bowed. I stood when everyone stood. I pressed my forehead to the carpet when everyone did. But I was not praying to Allah. I was talking to Jesus. "Lord," I whispered silently, amid the murmured Arabic, "you brought me back here. You know the danger of this place. Show me how to live as yours in a land where your name cannot be spoken." My heart pounded not from fear, but from the intoxicating, terrifying knowledge that I was now carrying a secret that could cost me everything. At night, when the palace quieted and the lights dimmed, I lay in my bed and replayed my encounter with him over and over. His eyes, his scars, his words. "You are a daughter of the King of Kings. King of Kings, above my father, above any monarch, above any system, above any law." The girl who had once felt like a prisoner of her own title now carried a freedom inside her that no guard could confiscate. But how do you live out that freedom in a country where leaving Islam is punishable by death? Very, very carefully. I knew I needed a Bible. Not as an object to cut, mock, or use in jokes, as my lifeline, my food, my anchor. But in Saudi Arabia, obtaining a Bible isn't as simple as walking into a bookstore, especially not for someone whose every move is watched by staff, relatives, and security. I used the one advantage my position gave me: international connections. Through a trusted European contact who believed I wanted Western literature for cultural research, I arranged a shipment of books to the palace. On the packing list, everything was innocuous: economic reports, fashion catalogs, leadership manuals. Somewhere among them, wrapped in plain brown paper, was a black book that would change my nights. The day the box arrived, my heart hammered against my ribs as 2 servants carried it into my private study. "Just leave it," I said casually, forcing a yawn. "I'll go through it later." They bowed and left. I locked the door. My hands shook as I sliced the tape open, not with gold-handled scissors this time, but with the reverence of someone opening a safe. I dug past glossy magazines and thick reports until my fingers brushed worn leather. I pulled it out. Holy Bible. I pressed it to my chest and, to my surprise, started to cry. "I'm sorry," I whispered, not to the book, but to the one whose story it held. "I cut you once, I won't cut you again." That night, and many nights after, I read by a small lamp, the door locked, the curtains drawn. I started with the Gospels. I wanted to hear His voice again, to see the Jesus I had met in the tunnel, walking dusty roads, touching lepers, defending adulterous women, calming storms, confronting religious pride, weeping at graves, sweating blood in a garden, hanging on a cross, stepping out of a tomb. Every page felt like it was reading me. Passages I had once mocked now broke me and healed me at the same time. For God so loved the world, I remembered cutting that verse. Seeing it whole made it hit like a wave. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. He loved the world. He loved Saudi princes and poor workers and veiled women and nightclub girls. He loved the girl with scissors in her hand and hate in her laughter. He loved me enough to take a truck for me, to pull me out of death twice, to meet me in the tunnel I deserved to never see. The words came alive. My childhood Quran recitations had felt like memorizing sounds. This felt like being found. But every time a servant knocked or footsteps passed my door, I shoved the Bible under a stack of documents, my heart racing. The same book that had once been a prop in my rebellion was now contraband I guarded with my life. Before the crash, my double life had been about sin. A good Muslim at home, a rebellious hedonist abroad. After meeting Jesus, the double life took on a new, more dangerous shape. Outwardly, I looked more devout than ever. My family noticed that I no longer argued about prayer times. I willingly joined Quran study sessions. I dressed more modestly, traveled less, drank not at all. My father was thrilled. Allah has humbled her. I heard him tell a relative, "Near death changes a person. She is finally becoming serious." He didn't know that every time they thought I was memorizing Quran, I was repeating the words of Jesus under my breath. That in the silence of my room, I prayed not toward Mecca, but toward the heart of the one who had met me in the light. My mother watched me with soft, searching eyes. "You seem peaceful," she said one afternoon, pouring tea. "Is it because you are more religious now?" I held her gaze, my heart aching with the weight of what I could not say. "Yes," I answered carefully. "It's because I finally met God." It was the truth, just not in the way she thought. Living as a secret Christian in an Islamic palace felt like walking a tightrope over fire. A wrong word, a misplaced book, a detected online search could lead to interrogation, exile, or worse. I learned to hide my Bible in different places. Inside hollowed-out binders. Behind false panels in my closet. Beneath less suspicious books on economics and international law. I memorized as much as I could, knowing that one day the physical book might be taken from me. Verses about persecution, courage, and the cost of discipleship burned into my mind like light on film. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. In my world, crosses were not jewelry. They were death sentences. And yet, I felt more alive in my secret surrender than I had ever felt in all my public privilege. The girl who had once faked devotion to Islam now faked devotion to Islam for a different reason. To survive long enough to bear witness to Jesus in a place where his name was forbidden. It was a heavy burden. But he carried it with me. For months, my faith was a secret I carried alone. But the more I read the Bible, the more I realized following Jesus was never meant to be a solo journey. The early believers risked everything to meet, pray, break bread, share stories. "Lord," I whispered one night, staring at the ceiling of my darkened room, "are there others here? Am I the only one?" The answer came slowly, not as a voice, but as opportunities. It started with a Filipino nurse who had cared for me in the hospital. One day, as she adjusted my IV, I noticed a faint cross pendant tucked under her uniform, barely visible. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, time stopped. I said nothing then. But months later, when my medical checkups brought me back to that hospital, I made sure to ask for her by name. Behind the privacy curtain, with machines beeping softly and the hallway noise muffled, I took a risk. "You're a Christian," I said quietly, in English. Her hands froze. Fear flashed in her eyes. But behind the fear, hope flickered. "Yes, princess," she whispered. "I am." "So am I," I said. The words felt like stepping off a cliff. She stared at me, tears welling. "That is impossible," she said, but the way she said it, I knew she meant it in the best way. We spoke in fragments. She had come from Manila to work. She missed church. She prayed silently while changing IV bags. She had met other believers, African maids, Indian drivers, a few Lebanese and Egyptian expats. "There are meetings," she admitted, voice trembling. "Small, hidden, not safe. But take me," I said. The first secret gathering I attended was not in a church building, there are none in my country, but in the cramped living room of an apartment rented under a false name. Plastic chairs lined the walls. A cheap rug covered the floor. A small table in the center held a plate of flatbread and a plastic cup of juice. We were 15 people that night, men and women from at least 8 different countries. Some wore uniforms under their jackets. One man still had dust on his clothes from a construction site. And me, a Saudi princess in a simple abaya, sitting cross-legged on the floor. No titles, no servants, just a sister among brothers and sisters. We sang softly, in whispers more than melodies. In English, Tagalog, Amharic, Arabic. We prayed, in turns. We shared stories of how Jesus had met us in dreams, in underground churches, in prison cells, in hospital beds. When it was my turn, I told them about the tunnel, about the man in white, about the Bible I once cut, and now read like oxygen. Some of them wept. Others nodded, eyes shining. In that tiny room, with the risk of discovery hanging over us like a shadow, I felt more home than I ever had in the palace. The kingdom of God had outgrown the borders of my nation long ago, and now I was part of it. My title had always been a crown of both privilege and pressure. After meeting Jesus, it became a tool, a dangerous, powerful tool. I had access most believers in my country could only dream of: diplomatic pouches, private jets, unchecked packages, meetings with officials, influence over decisions. What do you want to do with this? I asked Jesus, one night, staring at my reflection in a mirror framed with gold. The girl looking back at me wore diamonds, but her eyes belonged to someone else now. The answer came slowly, through circumstances and quiet nudges. I began by helping the believers I had met. I used my international bank accounts to send anonymous donations to ministries working among underground churches in the region. I arranged employment transfers for a few Christians in dangerous situations, moving them to countries where they could worship openly. Once, when I learned that a foreign worker had been arrested for proselytizing, I asked my father casual questions about international relations. Then, behind the scenes, I contacted a diplomat who owed our family a favor. The case was reviewed. The sentence was quietly reduced. The man deported instead of imprisoned long term. He never knew a Saudi princess had whispered his name to Jesus and then to the right official. But Jesus knew. I used diplomatic shipments to smuggle Christian literature disguised as secular books. Sometimes I simply carried small New Testaments in the lining of my designer bags when traveling, leaving them in hotel rooms, airports, coffee shops, little seeds hidden in ordinary soil. Every move had to be subtle. If discovered, I could lose everything, not just my wealth, but my freedom, maybe my life. But after seeing death and returning, the fear of losing my earthly safety weighed less than the fear of wasting the second chance I'd been given. You spared me for more than survival, I reminded Jesus often. Show me who else you want to rescue. He did. Slowly, quietly, through late-night messages, carefully arranged meetings, and chance encounters that were not chance at all. My life became a strange blend of royal protocol and clandestine mission work. In the morning, I attended state events, shaking hands with dignitaries. At night, I sat on tiled floors in hidden rooms, praying with maids and drivers and laborers whose faith put mine to shame. I had once used my title to demand service. Now I used it to serve a different king. Following Jesus in secret did not erase the cost. It only delayed some of it. Suspicion eventually found me. It began with small comments. My father noticing that I no longer argued against religion but seemed different. My mother catching me humming worship songs in English and asking, "What is that tune?" A cousin remarking that I seemed too peaceful for someone who had nearly died. One evening, my older brother confronted me in the garden, away from servants' ears. "You've changed," he said bluntly. "Yes," I replied. No point denying it. "Since the accident," he went on, "you don't chase parties, you don't drink, you read strange books, you avoid certain clerics. What happened to you, Amira?" 1,000 answers crowded my tongue. I swallowed them all. "I saw death," I said instead. He studied me, suspicion flickering behind his concern. More about God or about something else? In that moment, I realized that sooner or later, my two worlds would collide. Jesus had warned his followers centuries ago, You will be hated because of me. I had read those words in my hidden Bible, nodding as if they were for someone else. Now they were walking through my palace in the shape of my own family's questions. I didn't face open persecution the way some believers did. No chains, no public trials. My family's honor and position made things more complicated. But control tightened. My travel was restricted. My phone was checked more often. My meetings were monitored. One night, I discovered my Bible had been moved a few centimeters from where I'd hidden it. My heart stopped. Had someone seen it? Had they recognized it? Or had it just shifted when I grabbed another book? For weeks, I slept lightly, waking at every creak in the hallway, every shadow under the door. In those long, trembling hours, Jesus' words echoed. I had not yet lost my life, but I was slowly losing my ability to live comfortably in any world, too Christian for Islam, too Saudi for most churches abroad. It hurt. But it also clarified. Christianity, for me, was not a cultural addition or a religious upgrade. It was a new identity that put me at odds with my old world. The same Jesus who filled me with peace also divided my life into a before and after that could never be quietly blended. I knew, deep down, one day I might have to choose between my earthly family and my heavenly King. And when that day came, I prayed the courage He had given me in the tunnel would not fail. The first person from my old life I ever openly told about Jesus was Hannah, the friend who had been in the car with me the night of the crash. We sat in my room months later. She still walked with a slight limp, but she was alive. Grateful, but confused. She kept saying, "We should be dead, Amira. I don't know why we're not." I did. "Do you remember what you showed me in the car that night?" I asked. She frowned. "The video? Of you cutting up that Bible?" "Yes," she grimaced. "You got weird about it. I thought you were just traumatized." I took a deep breath. "I died that night, Hannah," I said quietly. "Not for long, but I left my body. I saw the crash from above. I went through something like a tunnel, and I met—" I paused. Saying his name out loud in this house, to a Muslim friend, felt like stepping into the middle of a highway. "Who?" she whispered. "Jesus," I said. "I met Jesus." Her face went pale. "Astaghfirullah," she breathed automatically, reaching for the words we were taught to say when we heard something dangerous. "Amira, don't joke." "I'm not joking," I said. "I saw him. He called me by my name. He showed me my life. He spoke to me about things no one knows. He told me he is the Son of God, and I believed him." She stared at me, as if I had confessed to killing someone. You can't say that," she stammered. "It's haram. It's blasphemy." "I know. And you what? You became Christian?" "Yes," I said simply. "In that tunnel." Before my heart started beating again, silence stretched between us. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. Finally, she whispered, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you were there," I said, my voice thick with urgency. "Because you almost died too. Because if we had both ended our lives in that crash, only one of us would have been ready for what came next. I love you too much to be silent." Her eyes filled with tears, not of repentance, but of fear and confusion. "I can't listen to this," she said, standing abruptly. "If someone hears you, if they hear me here with you, you know what they could do. You're insane, Amira. This is Western brainwashing. Trauma. You need help." She left. The door closed softly behind her, but the sound echoed like a slammed gate in my chest. I sank to my knees, the same posture I had used for Islamic prayer, and let the tears come. "Lord," I choked out, "you knew this would happen. You warned me. You said they'd reject me the way they rejected you. Give me strength not to hate them. Help me love them, even when they walk away." Peace settled, heavy and steady, even as my heart hurt. Seeds were planted that day, not just in Hannah's questioning mind, but in my own resolve. If telling the truth cost me friendships, I would grieve, but I would not go back to silence. Sometimes I sit with my Bible open and think about that night in London. The scissors, the laughter, the arrogance that thought tearing paper could tear down truth. Now, every page feels like treasure. Every verse like a pearl I nearly trampled. I used to cut verses out as a joke. Now I copy them carefully into notebooks, onto my heart, into my memory. My lips whisper them as I walk palace halls, ride in cars, lie awake at night. The Lord is my shepherd. Come to me, all you who are weary. I will never leave you nor forsake you. God so loved the world. These words saved me from despair long before they saved me from death. I have watched powerful men tremble at economic instability and political threats. I have seen the inside of our wealth and our religion, and know now, with painful clarity, that neither can heal the ache Jesus healed in me in one encounter. I once thought I was doing something clever, sophisticated, even brave by cutting up a Bible. It made me feel powerful to attack something others called holy. Now I know. There was only one truly powerful one in that room that night, and it wasn't me. He watched me mock him and did not strike me down. He watched me slice through his words and did not withdraw his love. He watched me run and run and run, and still met me between life and death with open arms. I guard my Bible now, not because the paper itself is magic, but because the story it carries is the story that carried me out of darkness. If someone burst into my room right now, demanded I hand it over, threatened me with consequences, I don't know if I would have the strength to watch it taken. But I know this. They could burn the pages, lock me in a cell, strip my name from every royal list, and still, they would not be able to erase the words written on my heart. I once cut scripture for fun. Today, it cuts me in the best way. It cuts through pride, fear, lies, and the old identities I cling to, until only one truth remains. I belong to Jesus. If you had met me before August 4th, 2016, you might have envied me. You would have seen the diamonds, the dresses, the cars, the staff, the invitations. You might have thought, she has everything. I had everything the world could give. And I was starving. I grew up in the strictest form of Islam, prayed all the prayers, followed all the rules, and still felt like I was shouting into a sky that never answered. I ran to sin, to parties, to rebellion, and still woke up empty. Then, in the twisted metal of a crashed SUV on a highway in Saudi Arabia, my heart stopped. I left my body. I saw my own face, pale and still. I traveled through a tunnel of light into a place more real than any palace I have ever known. There, I met the one I had mocked, Jesus. He didn't lecture me. He didn't list my sins like charges in a courtroom. He didn't demand payment. He showed me his scars. He called me by my name. He told me the truth, that I could never climb to God on my own, no matter how religious or rebellious I was, that he had come down instead, that on the cross he took the punishment my sins deserved, that by rising from the dead, he opened a way back to the Father for anyone, princess or prisoner, imam or atheist, party girl or veiled wife, who would believe. I believed. He sent me back. My body started to breathe again. Since then, my life has not been easy. I live as a secret Christian in a land that forbids it. I walk a line between honoring my family and honoring the one who saved me. I live with the constant knowledge that one discovery could change everything. But I also live with a peace I never knew before, a love that does not depend on my performance, a joy that does not vanish when the party ends, a hope that is stronger than car crashes, bullets, sickness, or fear. You may be Muslim. You may be Christian by culture only. You may be atheist, spiritual, or nothing at all. You may think my story is crazy. That's okay. I once would have thought so too. But ask yourself this. If everything you've tried so far, religion, success, pleasure, rebellion, obedience, has not healed the emptiness inside you, what do you have to lose by asking Jesus if he is who he says he is? In the quiet of your room, without imams or priests or family watching, you can whisper the same simple prayer I did in that tunnel. Jesus, if you are real, if you truly are the Son of God, if you truly died and rose for me, show me, save me. I am yours. He is not offended by your questions. He has heard worse from me. He can handle your doubts. He can handle your culture. He can handle your history. I was a Saudi princess who cut up a Bible for fun. In return, Jesus cut through my pride, my fear, my sin, and saved my life in a car crash I should not have survived. Now, titles don't matter. Palaces don't matter. Even safety doesn't matter as much as this. Jesus Christ is Lord. He is alive. He loves you. This is my testimony. And I will spend whatever life I have left telling it, no matter the cost.